You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. Episode 34, Cracked Mirror.
Welcome into another episode of Mission Log Prodigy, a Roddenberry Star Trek podcast. I'm Charlene Schmidt.
And I'm Marina Kravchik. Just like our flagship Mission Log podcast, each week here on Mission Log Prodigy, we discuss each and every episode of this animated series, discover what makes each of them special, and see if there are any morals, meanings, or messages that we have learned.
This week, we look into Cracked Mirror. Please remember that Mission Log Prodigy is an in-depth review podcast, so if you've not seen this episode yet, you want to put us on pause, go watch this episode. It's a good one. And then come back and you'll hear us talk all about it.
Mission Log Prodigy is produced for YouTube and as a regular podcast, so please be sure to engage the like and share buttons and subscribe to us here on Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel. And if you listen to the audio-only version, please leave us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can also follow Mission Log Prodigy on X, formerly known as Twitter, at ML_Prodigy, and now on Instagram at Mission Log Prodigy, one word, to keep up with all our latest news and updates.
Now, before we jump into the show proper, let's remind everybody why our podcast is so unique. And that is because we want to hear from the cadets, the younger Prodigy fans out there who'd like to share their thoughts on the show. And right now, we want to hear what you think about both parts of Ascension. So please record a voice message and then tell us the following. What is your first name and age? Did you like the episode? What was your favorite part? And what did you learn? And then you'll send your file to missionlog-prodigy@roddenberry.com, and please make sure that it reaches our inbox no later than October 19th.
Now, we do have one more thing to tell you before we jump into this week's episode, and that is to tell you about our giveaway, where you can win some really cool Prodigy merch, something like both seasons of Prodigy on Blu-Ray. That's just one of the prizes that you can win. So, what you do is head over to the link in the description of this episode for the link to enter. And speaking of which, stay tuned to the end of this video because we will be giving you a secret code that you can find only here in this episode. With all that said, let's kick things off for this show by answering the same questions we ask our cadets. So, Char, did you like the episode?
Oh, my heart. Yes. Yes, I did. This episode gives us two really incredible things. The mirror universe, Prodigy style, and then also sort of Voyager style, just because Prodigy is a bit of a continuation of Voyager. And we also get this so long-awaited payoff by finally, it happens, reuniting Janeway and Chakotay. Victory!
The best. My goodness, I love it. Yes, I love it so many times. Yes. What a great resolution. See what I did there? So what a great resolution to the story thread of find Chakotay, find Protostar, get back to Voyager. So there's a lot of fun, but there's also, as you said, great emotional payoff. This was a spectacular episode. So do you have a favorite part?
It has to be what this entire series has led to, and that's where we leave off in the episode with Janeway and Chakotay finally together again. I might have actually breathed a sigh of relief the first time I watched this. Like, did it really happen, or are they going to snatch it away from us in the next episode, and we're going to have to wait until episode 19 or what have you? And it just felt like, no, they're actually doing it this time. It's real, and I love that the characters actually take a little pause too. Like, you're real, right? It's really you? Okay, bring it in. That's definitely was how I felt too.
I agree. For, being the all-time Voyager fan, this was such a long-awaited, intense moment. And it was incredibly well done by everybody involved. I mean, the creatives, the folks who actually wrote the scene, and of course, the performers. Both Kate and Robert did a phenomenal job. And yeah, I have to admit, that even though I am not, Section 31, Mirror Universe, stuff like that happening, I got a kick out of a romp through Mirror Universe. Voyager, as you mentioned, is the one series that never had anything. I mean, we came sort of close with the way some aliens in the future thought about Voyager, but that wasn't the same thing as having an actual Mirror Universe experience. And now we sort of have it. And it was hilarious. I mean, both terrifying and hilarious at the same time.
Yes.
What did you learn?
Well, I learned that the mirror universe just doesn't ever change. Like, even the whales are evil. I'm wearing the shirt. I have been waiting, by the way, to wear this thing since I bought it at Star Trek Las Vegas for this show. So finally, the day is here. And okay, on a serious side, though, maybe that true love and dedication really persevere through anything, including timelines. Janeway and Chakotay's love is eternal. How about you?
Yeah. That's very true. Well, we get another wonderful way of showing teamwork, and we get it, again, our crew working together, solving a problem, our crew dealing with Akona. He does help him. And of course, even to a certain degree, our crew dealing, working along with their evil counterparts. So that was a pretty nice twist again on the same lesson. Also, what I found is the way multiple characters, and we're going to talk about this later, the importance of showing how much you care for your friends and your crew, by via acting and actually out loud saying so I thought that was a really nice thing to show.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, well, thank you, Marina, for your answers to this week's questions. Now it is time for the recap for Cracked Mirror. This is written by Aaron McNamara and directed by Rulin Lee. The Protostar's journey home has been a smooth trip, save for a bumpy exit out of Protowarp. Nevertheless, it's great to see Voyager again. Chakotay, now in a modern uniform and clean-shaven, is ready for his long-awaited reunion with Admiral Janeway. Hologram Janeway will stay aboard the Protostar and take care of Bribble, and even though she's more of a dog person, she takes to entertaining the cute creature, and herself, with a holographic laser pointer right away. The rest of the crew beams aboard Voyager, and they are greeted by the EMH, who's delighted to see his proteges again. His happiness at seeing them again is exceeded only by the sight of Captain Chakotay, who is looking forward to seeing Admiral Janeway again, only the Admiral on this ship is Jellicoe. Janeway, Tysus, and Noam died while attempting to rescue Chakotay from the wormhole. It's odd that none of our crew members remember these events. Perhaps they're in a state of shared psychosis, or maybe they're on the wrong Voyager. Regardless, the EMH promises he will help them, after some further tests in sickbay. Everyone but Rocktalk and Zero enter the turbolift, and along the way, something overcomes Gwyn. Her time stabilizer adjusts, but the doors open to an unkempt and dark deck. It seems as though sickbay is abandoned until Akana shows up? He recognizes them and is surprised to see them, given that they destroyed the entire Federation, after all, and Chakotay is the only Starfleet officer Akana's seen in a while. Cut to Rocktalk and Zero on their own turbolift, where the doors open to a corridor bustling with Endoprisians. Both sets of our crew have determined that they are not where they're supposed to be, but what to do about it? Chakotay's been through a situation like this before, where he moved through different realities. If they figure out how this happened, then they can navigate back to their reality. The stunning visual outside the ship offers a clue. When they proto-warped, they undid some of the fabric of space-time. The universe is unraveling, just as Wesley said, and space looks like it was fractured into pieces, with the Protostar at the heart of the crack. These different pieces represent the outcome of different choices the crew could have made in the past, and they have permeated the ship. Majel suggests that they activate an inverse tachyon pulse to seal the rift, and that will untangle all of this mess. They just have to get to the bridge. That could be a problem, though. That is 8 decks away, and Gwyn's armband isn't built to keep her safe through that many other realities. That's why she felt faint in the turbolift. Jankum nominates Akana to beam them to the bridge. He's not completely sure what's going on, and is much more interested in making a quick buck from salvaging scraps, but he'll do as they ask. Oh, but there is one thing. He sold some of the parts of the transporter to the Andorians. Should be fine. It is not fine. Not only are they not on the bridge, but Majel is missing. Janeway shows up with several armed guards, as does another Chakotay. This nightmare is called the Mirror Universe, a dangerous and unfriendly place where humans care more about conquest than exploring the stars. The crew isn't interested in talking about why they are there, so Mirror Chakotay fires up the Agonizer. Prime Chakotay volunteers, but Mirror Chakotay wants the cute one, aka Murph. Murph is frightened, but fights back, giving Mirror Chakotay quite a beating as he falls unconscious on the floor. Prime Chakotay steals Mirror Chakotay's phaser and uniform. He will pose as his counterpart, and the rest of the crew will pretend to be his prisoners. Just one thing, though, the facial hair? Nothing a little bit of jankum grease can't fix. Prime Chakotay slathers it on his face in the shape of a goatee, and now he's evil. Murph enthusiastically follows suit, painting on a goatee of his own. They make their way down the corridor, past guards, and all is going according to plan until they run into Mirror Janeway, who is not impressed with how uninterrogated the prisoners look. She wants Gwen's armband gone too, and threatens to airlock her and Dal when he speaks up. But Chakotay assures her it's no threat. Doesn't she trust her first officer? Of course, Mirror Janeway says, but he's not here. She pulls out her phaser, and Chakotay orders everyone to run as they escape. Out of immediate danger, Gwen apologizes to Chakotay, understanding that this wasn't the reunion with Janeway he was hoping for. Dal apologizes too. He could have gotten himself and Gwen both killed, but Chakotay says that some people are worth fighting for. Unfortunately, their cover is blown by Jillian, the evil whale. Mirror Chakotay and guards pursue, and when our crew head the opposite way, they're caught by Mirror Janeway. Jacob spots an opportunity to cause a little bit of good trouble and activates a force field, trapping the Mirror Universe crew in cetacean ops and giving our crew another chance at escape. They make their way to the bridge, and Prime Chakotay lures the crew there away from their consoles by convincing them that Admiral Janeway is in danger. She must be protected, or else. Once they evacuate, Prime Chakotay orders the doors sealed to be opened only by his voice command. He begins reconfiguring the deflector dish, but who shows up but our good friends, the Loom? Gwen adjusts the shield phase variants. That'll slow them down, but not stop them. On the other side of the door, Mirror Janeway and Chakotay have burned their way through. Prime Chakotay tells them that if they kill him and his crew, no one will survive. Mirror Janeway is skeptical, but once the Looms start breaking through the shields, she wastes no time firing the ship's phasers at them so Prime Chakotay and his crew can complete their work. One of the Loom reaches the bridge and slows time down just as Prime Chakotay reaches to activate the deflector dish. The only person unaffected is Gwen, thanks to her armband, and she dodges the creature just enough to activate the tachyon pulse. Once that happens, everyone beams back to the Prime universe. They're greeted by the EMH, who's delighted to see his proteges again. His happiness at seeing them is exceeded only by the sight of Captain Chakotay. He never thought he would see him again. And then the doors whoosh open for Admiral Janeway, stunned at the sight of her former first officer. At last they embrace. "You're home," she declares. The end. My heart! I'm just going to say that over and over in this episode. I don't care.
Right, listen, as you said, it finally happened. I mean, at some point, I was considering the same thing. Like, maybe that's it. Chakotay's lost for good. Who knows?
You never know.
We get a lot of stuff. I mean, I was writing my observations. I'm like, well, I don't want to write out the entire episode because there's a lot of things happening. I love how organically the exposition is. Again, we get a lot of explanations of concepts from Star Trek universe that built in. So you have the action happening and you get an explanation along with it. So we have at the very beginning, Magellan's questioning like, can the ship actually sustain this speed, the velocity? And Zero says, it's going to be fine, and parallel to that quickly explains how warp works. I mean, it just look literally like a sentence, but we have the basic idea of what warp is about. We again reminded the existence of multiple realities, multiple universes, and how some of them occur, which is making different choices and you arrive at a completely different timeline. And of course, the big thing is mirror universe as a concept. The mirror universe reality gets quite an expose, both in terms of visual design. Everything looks much darker with all this red highlights.
Yes.
We get the explanation from Chakotay what it is. I mean, we've seen it in so many different other Star Trek productions, but Chakotay explains, that mirror universe has been there all along. And of course, we get the explanation through the way the mirror Janeway, mirror Chakotay, as well as a mirror whale are behaving, behaving and interacting with each other. And of course,
Certainly.
the stereotypical, the goatees. Once you get the goatee, you're evil.
That's it. That's what really makes it. Murph with that greasy goatee cracks me up no matter how many times I watch this episode. It's so funny. And just the way when they're walking down the corridor going past the guards, he gives that salute. Like he's just
I know.
really burying himself in the part.
And it's almost as if it's like, that's it. He got the goatee. The guards are like, well, he's evil. Everything's fine. Salute.
It really is that simple, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned the very top of the episode, the scene where we're discussing warp and all of that. I had a question because Dal's in the captain's chair in this scene. And so have he and Chakotay come to some sort of agreement? Like, are they taking turns in the command chair? Like when Chakotay doesn't want to sit in it, he's like, okay, Dal, you've got the con, that side sort of thing. I'd just like to know if they talk that out.
I don't know. I'm almost curious because what follows, we get Chakotay show up and he is, spick and span. He's clean shaven. He's wearing, brand new uniform. He looks like your polished Starfleet captain. Same haircut as he had, during Voyager years, even though he does wishes he had fewer hair, gray hairs. Am I trying too hard? So who knows? Maybe he's being very self-conscious. So maybe it was sort of the moment where he's like, well, I really have to get myself in order. Dal, you have the bridge. It could be just like a one-time thing for all we know. So yeah, perhaps. So it is kind of adorable to see him that flustered in a way, very un-Chakotay.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Dal can't help himself and just, it's a very PG-13 quip, oh, it looks like somebody's ready to be sent to the Admiral's ready room.
We know what you mean, Dal. We know what you mean.
I know. I was wondering though, we start shifting through the realities. Everything goes fuzzy, and Gwyn is not feeling well, so her armband is obviously glitching. It seems pretty amazing that the armband and the whole, just generally the time stabilizer as a piece of equipment, that it held up without any issues whatsoever in all the intervening episodes, from the moment that she got it to the crazy run with Wesley, and it's almost seems like, oh, but now it's going to be a problem. I'm wondering if, obviously we've reached the point where we have to catch up with the whole time paradox thing. So here's the armband.
Well, it is amazing that it has held up as well as it has, including Zero's body. Their body's still falling, like so slowly falling apart. And nevertheless, these feel like little ticking time bomb plot points. There, it's only a matter of time before time is up, as Janeway so famously said.
Yeah, that's very true. I love the fact that hologram Janeway says, "Oh, I'm more of a dog person." I mean, obviously she is based on real Janeway, who is a dog person. I mean, she used to have Molly and presumably perhaps other pets in the past. So it was rather adorable because she's kind of like the Janeway of old, and she's playing with that with Bribble, who's absolutely adorable.
Oh, so adorable. And man, I really think hologram Janeway is onto something by just putting a laser pointer in your finger and you could just activate it at any time. How many pet owners would kill to have that at any moment's notice? I mean, I think this is a big marketing opportunity here. Somebody can make a lot of money if you can do it. How convenient. That's what I'm thinking. Also, what I couldn't help but notice was a little bit of sibling rivalry between Bribble and Murph, because they're both cute, but now Murph isn't the youngest cute one. Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, even the mirror Chakotay kind of agreed, even though you don't mess with Murph, even however cute he is.
Right. Another note on Zero, which I should have brought up a little earlier, but here we go. Zero expresses amazement about seeing Voyager with new eyes, which makes me wonder how they saw Voyager before. How is, say, vision between their corporeal body different from the containment suit? It would be cool to see a side-by-side comparison for some real nerdy deep dive that only I want.
Yeah, that's true. This is actually not unlike Geordi and his visor. If you think about it, yes, Geordi obviously is a human, but he's been with his visor for so many years. And then when his eyes start regenerating during the interaction, the movie, it's like that's when he says that's the first time I'm seeing sunrise with my own eyes. It's got to be like, well, how on earth did he process the visual cues prior to that? So I think it's kind of similar in that regard for Zero, and it's oh gosh, it's I'm still very heartbroken with the fact his body is kind of slowly falling apart. Just too sad.
Yeah, it is sad.
Something I was wondering, it kind of hit me, and I kind of had to pause and thought about it. So we being back, I mean, we know it's a wrong Voyager now, but originally we've been back to Voyager, and there's EMH at the transporter control station, and I was sitting there wondering, like, well, what on earth was he doing? Not really. You would normally expect a transporter chief or somebody assigned, perhaps an engineer sometimes. I mean, we've had moments when, B'Elanna would be manning it, staffing it.
But the doctor.
EMH?
Yeah, he's got nothing else to do. I mean, plot convenience, obviously. But I had the same question. Why him? Like, what in the world is he doing just hanging out in the transporter room? Doesn't make much sense.
I'm curious. I'm like, well, was there like some kind of a, I don't know, a little explanation hidden somewhere? And that's why, like, well, it's great to see, to have EMEH as part of the discussion. I mean, he has some really lovely lines as he's interacting and trying to solve the he's a shared psychosis or what else is going on. So obviously he had to be somehow part of the conversation, but it's a little bit random. It's like, beam in, oh, here's the doctor.
Yeah, unless he knows it's them. And do they think that maybe somebody is injured? That's the only plausible explanation I can think of.
Yeah, but he seems surprised, like, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. So that doesn't really check. So yeah, I don't know.
I have a question. Yes, I have a question mark about this one. So what we talked about, before, multiple realities resulting from different choices. I love the fact that when we get to the destroyed Federation reality and Akona is there, and the fact that he's like, oh, it's you guys. So he remembers meeting them, dealing with them. He remembers the crew, but then his memory and reality diverges precisely when, he's like, oh, well, if you didn't stop the weapon, the whole thing went, the entire Federation has been destroyed as a result. So that, again, it's part of that wonderful exposition where it explains, like, what happens when you did do something or you didn't do something. That was a wonderful concept to explain. And I also really like that moment when he asked about Rock. He's like, where's the Rock girl? I really liked her. It was such a sweet moment.
Even coming from Akana, which of all the characters I wanted to see in season 2, Akana, aka Captain Ponytail, it wasn't high on my list, but you know what? He's used very well here, so I'm not mad about it.
Yes, he is. I love the fact that when he says, oh, by the way, your uniforms, such vintage Starfleet, like I can really push this on the black market. It kind of made me think, like in Discovery when Burnham is thrown past the burn, she's trying to sell her tricorders. Like, yeah, this is vintage. It's kind of like made me think of that moment.
How cool was it to see a whole corridor filled with Enterprisian crew members? Now, that was a callback that was also not expected, but very pleasantly surprised about that. I didn't think we'd ever see those folks again. How cool. But Captain Tuvix? Oh my. Well, I want to know that story.
That's the best part about when you have multiple realities. You get some unexpected throwbacks and combinations. The Enterprisians and then Captain Tuvix. That's a hoot. Which, unfortunately, again, we don't get to see that. We only know Zero mentions, like, oh, Vulcan Talaxian fusion cuisine from Captain Tuvix. So something must have happened when he and Rock ended up in that reality on the particular day. Having said that, Majel obviously did not get transported with our crew to the bridge, so she must have stayed behind with Akona. She says and I have to read this out. She says at the end when everybody's back in Prime Universe, she says, "Well, this was highly outrageous," which is obviously a callback to the title of the episode when Akona appears the first time in TNG when we're introduced to his character, Outrageous Akona. What happened there? I want to know. Are we gonna get like I don't know?
Seriously,
can we have a short?
Did they
track?
Just get into it? Those two. But seriously, that's the tip off. That was such a great observation that like she was but left behind and had to stay with that outrageous guy.
Too much fun.
Love that.
I love that. Well, again, visually it's spectacular. I especially love the fact that the title of the episode is represented when Murph looks up and sees the anomaly, the cosmos looks like a cracked mirror outside of the ship, and it's perfect.
It
And
really
that's the name of the
does.
episode. It's just beautiful.
Such an amazing visual. That's where my shout out to the art department has to go this week, because that is, I would like to see a poster of that. It's so beautiful.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of cracked things, the episode Shattered came to mind. That is a Voyager episode from season 7, where Chakotay even talks about his experience in that episode. In this episode, talking about how he went through different realities on the ship, deck by deck, as I recall, not too dissimilar. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, well, something else that the Voyager had, and not in terms of multiple realities in the same episode, but sort of the situation of you walking down the corridor, you take the turbolift, just, going from one part of the ship to another, and you end up something entirely elsewhere. And that made me, that's the, I think, season 2, the Twisted, where he's like, okay, take the turbolift, I'm going to engineering. Instead, you end up, in some guy's quarters.
You walk around, you don't know where you're going to go.
So we do have something that is very Voyager-like again, and there's the moment of pure technobabble when Majel explains what needs to be done to seal the hole that we accidentally poked, what the crew poked, I should say, when they proto-warped, and it's just so wonderful. Where it's like we know what it means, but it just so like, and the tech and this and an inverse pulse, and Del just cracks. He's like, I don't know what you're saying, but I like the way you're saying it. And I think that's the general response to those sort of situations pretty much every time.
Said every Star Trek director ever to the actors. Speaking of Dal, I really got to give it up to the guy for standing up to Mirror Janeway. As he does, it takes guts to be brave in a moment like that, where, hey, your life really is in danger. You don't know what this crazy lady with a weapon is going to do, but he's doing it for Gwyn, and that means everything.
Yeah, that was. We know Del is brave. Something that's a bit more on the fun side. There's quite a bit of comedic one-liners I felt in this episode, and just the intonation, the way things were delivered. With Zero, like, I guess we took the wrong turbolift. They end up in a completely different place with Captain Tuvix. Gwyn sort of like, it's this half resigned, half sarcastic. What nightmare are we in now when they end up in the mirror universe?
Which one now?
Jankum says like, oh, not the cute one. And then, of course, Murph beats up the evil Chakotay. And the best one, which is like, it should be like the subtitle, even the whales are evil. We get it twice.
Thank goodness. It won't ever get old.
Yeah, I know, right? So even with Mirror Universe being what it is, nevertheless, we got quite a few funny moments here.
I mean, I really never thought that maybe the whales were evil until we saw Jillian on the Terran Voyager A. So that answers a question I didn't even know I had. Now, I mentioned earlier that Voyager never really did a Mirror Universe episode. So this is really interesting to get a glimpse of what that might have been like here. And my biggest observation from all of this is that Mirror Janeway and Chakotay are very touchy-feely with one another.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you said, it's like, some things are kind of true across the universe. I mean, they still have matching gray hair streaks. I thought, like, that's a great choice. I did find interesting that the Mirror Janeway is also an admiral. So, she's admiral in our universe, she's admiral in their universe. But Mirror Chakotay is still a commander and first officer. He's not a captain. So I thought that was an interesting touch. Yeah. And speaking of, Mirror Janeway, Mirror Chakotay, I just absolutely love the voice acting. I mean, we already spoke about this in one of the previous episodes. How do they do this? At this point, how many Janeways we have? And each one of them has its own voice. Her own voice, sorry.
Honestly, I think it's more than one hand at this point.
It's extraordinary. I love it.
Yeah, super, super good. There's definitely much more of a cadence, or a different cadence, I should say, to both Mirror Chakotay and Mirror Janeway. And I love the way Kate Mulgrew's Mirror Janeway just purrs every other word.
Yeah, well, for that matter, evil Jillian. I mean, when you have a whale with a scar intone "All Hail Terran Empire," that's an experience.
Wow. dang. They went for it. My fanfic brain, of course, kicked in with multiple stories when Mira Janeway says, "I know how you love your interrogations." Like, okay, there's about, like, let's see, 25, 50, at least 50 ways that I can interpret that line and write a different story. Thank goodness I don't have the time.
Yeah, that's another PG-13 moment, I suppose.
Oh, I don't know. I won't go there.
Yeah.
Or not. Yeah.
Yes.
It depends on the mood. Okay, one last observation I have about Mira Janeway is the device that is above her left eye. Should we presume that that's Seven of Nine's eyepiece?
I don't know. I was thinking about it. I was wondering if it's just sort of a generic, because, again, folks who have seen other Star Trek incarnations would realize that this is a reference, obviously, to a Borg implant. So is it meant to be sort of just generic one to indicate that in Mirror Universe, Borg are very much subservient and have been used to improve the Empire? Or is it some kind of a hint at, I don't know, in this reality something happened between Janeway and Seven that is not a mental, mother-daughter like relationship like on Voyager, and I don't know. So that's another question mark. We have a lot of questions for this episode.
The Mirror Universe will do that, but
we'll do that
given
to you.
how in the Mirror Universe, so many people, however many people you have to kill to make things happen, and so you can get promoted and ascend up the chain. I mean, it's not a surprise if Seven is gone. But that is also a critique I have of the Mirror Universe in general, is just how this really doesn't work the more you play with it, because how can half of these people be alive by the way they all kill each other?
Seeing that Janeway is the Admiral, and incidentally, I mean, visually, there is a wonderful correspondence between the way she's in Prodigy episode and the way she looks in Star Trek Online. I don't know if you've ever seen evil Admiral Janeway on Star Trek Online. There is kind of a rather striking similarity in that regard. But I was gonna say, I mean, if she's an admiral, I mean, at that point she'd probably be the one person that would be very, very hard to get rid of, I suppose. So and it's wonderful the way if you think about how many ways she's radically different to our admiral. Some of the things that she says, she calls Murph a goo bag at some point. She's like, I hate children. I'll have your head if you don't get rid of the force field. So this is a scary woman to come across.
Yeah, you don't really want to mess with her. I wouldn't.
No. So why don't we move on to the meat of the discussion, so to speak. In tradition of Mission Log, we dedicate a great deal of time to discuss some of the finer points from the episodes we review, to see the types of morals, meanings, messages, lessons that we can discover. So, Char, what did you find meaningful and memorable in the episode?
Well, I think the biggest thing, besides the fact that the Mirror Universe does not change, is something Chakotay says, our Chakotay. No matter what reality we're in, I could never hurt you. Like, that quote really hit. And that's what informed me to this whole discussion point, was how some things are just a constant across any universe. And you know what? Chakotay's love and respect, honestly, for Janeway, it is such a thing. And maybe there's a little bit of that reciprocated, just a little bit, because she does help once the looms start threatening her ship. But even if she claims they're not friends, she did at least give him that.
Yeah, I suppose that instinctively she just listened to what he has to say, even though it's like, we're not friends.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
This also harkens back to when Chakotay told Dal that some people are worth fighting for in any universe. So I really like to connect both of those quotes from him, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of ties into what I was going to say, that acting and showing and saying that how much you care for your crew, for your friends. I mean, we have multiple scenes like that where we have both Majel and Dal worried about Gwyn, when every single time we go through a phase, we get into another reality, and she obviously reacts to it. As you already described, Dal standing up for Gwyn in front of Mirror Janeway, a very dangerous situation. EMH, he's like, I'm going to exhaust all explanations. It's my duty to reunite you with your true crew. And of course, course, as a fun part, kids are obviously invested in seeing Janeway and Chakotay reunited themselves. So it's a lovely thing where like all the relationships are touched upon across the board, I think.
Yeah. Oh, isn't that so much fun? It's like they are rooting for them just like we are.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not everybody, but those of us who are shippers are, and you and I both are.
Oh, yeah. And another sort of tie-in to that is that very noticeably we've reached the point where they learn they learn that a problem comes along, we're going to solve it together. So there is this very Starfleet / Star Trek way of we working through the problem together. Chakotay says we can't fix this until we understand how it happened in the first place. So we get this wonderful, it could literally be any single of other Star Treks. A crew is getting together somewhere in one place, looking at a ship schematic, working out the problem, and in this case it's like how to get through multiple decks and use the deflector dish, which incidentally is another reference to Shattered, because that's in Shattered, that's what we use, the deflector dish, in order to seal the rift between the different realities. So I found it lovely that we kind of reached the point where like it's no longer them kind of like, oh, I'm just gonna rush through and do whatever. No, they kind of like automatically starting to instinctually kind of, let's get together, talk this through, solve the problem. Very Starfleet.
It is, and it is so automatic now. It's very cool to see that. And then it also taps into the evergreen theme of about working together. We're better off together than apart. We see it in every single episode. This is a slightly different iteration. Like they do it just a little differently every time. They will show us how it does work, how it might not work, and how right here it's automatic. Other times it hasn't been automatic. And so that's really cool the way they keep spinning it.
Well, exactly. There's a twist, because if it's not automatic, then there's probably some other lesson or another issue that kind of ties in that teaches a given character something else. So, well, speaking of, togetherness, we obviously have the big thing at the end, the reunion.
I mean, at last, I won't sing, but the song "At Last" did definitely run through my head. This episode moment, or this whole moment, has been lying in wait since episode 1 of season 1 of this show. What a payoff. That's why I find it hilarious that even Janeway and Chakotay have to take a moment just to make sure that it's real, because I think we're all kind of like pinching ourselves like, okay, really? And I made a note about how, as a shipper, I really did wonder, okay, these two have always danced around physical expression. Are they going to kiss? No, they're not going to kiss here. And you know what? That is okay. We really don't need them to. Not these two, not the way that they have always depicted their relationship.
This is one of those things that worked really well on Voyager, I feel. I mean, there is that scene, if you recall, in well, technically it's the finale of season six. So Unimatrix 0 part 1, where Janeway goes off to get assimilated and they're holding hands. There's a very brief moment. So not unlike the scene, we don't really have to see anything more specific. And I'm sure a lot of folks would like to see some kind of solid confirmation. Yes, there is a relationship, but there's something that Kate Mulgrew said in her interview with Trek Movie right after they screened this particular episode at this year's San Diego Comic-Con. So out of all the 20 episodes that we have with they could have shown the stuff with Wesley. That would have been an exciting thing. But no, they picked specifically Cracked Mirror. And so she said, and I quote, "The tenderness of this relationship, the possibility of this relationship, you see when they are reunited, how deeply they love each other, how deeply they have missed each other. The Hagemans have taken it to a new level." So, it's implied, however you want to interpret it. This was done incredibly well. It was beautiful.
It really does feel like they've taken it to a different level, too. You don't have to see them just getting all huggy poo kissy face to see that. No, I don't know. There's just something about visually, like, I don't know, something just connects, and it's oh so subtle that it always has existed that way between these two. That's always been a handhold or a hand on the chest or what have you. And I really appreciate that that's continued here. A long time ago, at one of the Star Trek Vegas conventions, I was talking with Aaron Waltke about Janeway and Chakotay, and he asked me, well, what would you want to see out of a Janeway and Chakotay relationship in season 2? This is prior to the season airing. And I said, well, I mean, I just kind of like to know where they're at. Like, how are things going for them? Are they, is there anything there? Isn't there? And his answer was, shippers are going to be very pleased and non-shippers are going to be okay. And now I understand what he meant, because I was racking my brain at the time, like, okay, what are you going to make them kiss in the mirror universe so it doesn't really count? Like, that seemed like the obvious choice.
Yeah.
But I'm also glad they didn't do that, because that would have just been too much of a tease. But no, this is the way they've always straddled it. And that is exactly what Janeway and Chakotay need to be. You know, they don't have to say a whole lot of words. They don't have to have too many physical gestures. It's all in those eyes and their looks between one another. It's there.
Yeah. It's open to interpretation, because I know for a fact there's plenty of folks who don't particularly care for that particular pairing.
Right.
So in this case, you can interpret it as an incredibly close, intimate friendship.
Certainly, yeah. Like, it's subtle enough to where it's not being slammed in your face and it's just going to turn you off and take you out of it completely. No.
Yeah.
But if you're looking for what you want to see, it's there no matter what it is.
Yeah. No, so like I said, it's masterfully done. I absolutely appreciated that moment. It really, for me, it hit a lot of points. Something as a sort of a last observation, that wonderful statement at the very end when we have a scene with Del and Gwen, where he says, whatever our reality throws at us, I'm glad that I'm in this one with you. It's, whether you want to interpret it as a possibly budding romance, you can do so. I think that it's a lovely expression again of the bond that developed between them. At the very basic,
definitely,
both of them are very lonely kids who didn't really have any family, and it's the whole concept that what we have in Star Trek. The found friendship, the found family, and the friendship that closely develops between various characters. So in this case, I thought this was an absolutely wonderful way of ending this particular episode, where we have reaffirmation of various bonds between the characters.
Yeah, it's a really nice line, and it also does show that these two have really come together. They have been through so much, and maybe they are following Janeway and Chakotay's lead a little bit in terms of expressing whatever romantic feelings they have for one another, because if you recall, season 1, they exchanged a couple of kisses here and there, and then they've really toned it down. So maybe it's just not about that, and that's okay. Yeah.
Well, why don't we wrap this up?
Man, yeah, the mirror is not broken anymore. They put it back together. So how about some final thoughts and anything final that you learned?
Yeah, so this was a very emotionally charged episode. Hands down. We covered a lot of ground in a very short period of time, as has been the case throughout the entire season. But we get a wonderful payoff of all these reunions and bonds strengthened, and now we have the entire gang is all together, and it's in one place in its proper timeline. And we kind of have to turn our attention back to the fact that the Prime Universe is unraveling, and that is the major problem that needs to be solved now. And, lest we forget, what have we missed on Solum? Because I
was waiting for it.
Yeah, because I think that's going to be the next big thing. Let's put it this way.
That's been by far the biggest gaping hole that we've had really no follow-up on.
For like half a season, yeah.
So that's coming. We know that. Yeah, okay, this one, it was a quick favorite, but I suspect it's not going to lose its staying power the more I watch it. This is going to be a comfort food episode, kind of like Last Flight of the Protostar. I'm not ever going to get tired of it. I love all of it. And the more I think about, like, as we dissected this episode, it doesn't contain this myriad of morals and messages and meanings as, say, like, all that we found in a Tribble called Quest. That's okay. What is here is really solid and important to the story and powerful in its own right. So 10 out of 10, I have no notes.
Yeah, not unlike several other episodes that we had, we sort of reached the point where we leveled off with all the characters, except, again, whatever's going on in Solum, because we don't know yet. But our gang, everybody's on the same page as of right now. And let's see what happens next.
Yeah.
So, we've reached the end of our show, but before we go, we have one more thing to do, and that is to give you a special code you can use to enter our giveaway. And you'll find this code only here. So, the code is GOATEEMURF. GOATEEMURF. To enter, go to the link provided in the description of this episode and look for it on our social media channels.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Mission Log Prodigy. If you enjoyed our show, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the Mission Log Prodigy playlist on the Roddenberry Entertainment YouTube channel, or find us on the podcast catcher of your choice. Mission Log Prodigy is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Production and technical direction by Earl Green. Our website and your opportunity to comment and connect with us is at missionlogpodcast.com. And if you'd like to support Mission Log directly, you can do so at patreon.com/missionlog.
Next week, we will discuss Ascension Part 1. And cadets, don't forget to watch the episode and send us your thoughts no later than Saturday, October 19th. We can't wait to hear what you have to say, and we will feature your voice messages at the end of our next show. But for now, let's hear your thoughts on Cracked Mirror.
Receiving listener communications. Message playback begins.
What is your name?
James.
Did you like the episode?
Yes.
What was your favorite part?
I really liked when they end up in the mirror universe and the loom appear again.
Okay, and what did you learn?
To never try and mess around with more dimensions.
All right, what's your name and age?
My name is Rook and my age is 9.
Rook, did you like the episode?
Yes.
What was your favorite part of the episode?
My favorite part of the episode was when Zero and Rock went to the Inaputhian's world.
Yeah, that was cool. I like that they called out Captain Tuvix. You don't know what that is, but I love that. And what did you learn from the episode?
I learned from the episode that to a problem, there's always a solution.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that.
Also receiving communications from cadets who are young at heart.
Hi, my name is Jessica Edmonds. I'm 36 years old, and the episode Cracked Mirror is hands down my favorite Prodigy episode ever. I mean, for so many reasons. Okana comes back, the Enterpriseians come back, there's a Tuvix reference. The episode is structured similar to Shattered and Voyager, but like the biggest thing is I have been waiting almost 30 years to finally get a Mirror Universe episode of Voyager, and we got it. And not only did we get it, it was structured amazingly, and Janeway looks the way she did in the comic books and Star Trek Online. Like, I knew it wouldn't work in Voyager in the old days. You couldn't have a Mirror Universe then. But to finally get it now was the coolest thing. And what I love about this show and what I learned most about this whole episode is this is what it looks like when you have a show that is made by fans for fans. People who are like locked in and get it and know what we nerds want. This is what it looks like. Absolutely the best episode in my mind.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.